My boyfriend left me on the side of the highway, writhing in unbearable abdominal pain, just so he could go pick up his ex. He abandoned me there, letting the cold rain lash recklessly against my face. Later, when I accepted someone else's ring, he pinned me against the wall and, gritting his teeth, asked, "Are you really planning to give me up?" Chapter 1. Luna sat in the passenger seat, her face slightly pale. It was the first day of her period, and her lower abdomen twisted and cramped as if being torn apart. Ezekiel was driving while talking on the phone, completely oblivious to her condition. Through her hazy awareness, Luna heard him respond with a few quiet okay-s before hanging up. "Ezekiel," she started, intending to ask him to take her to a pharmacy to buy some painkillers, but he interrupted her calmly. "Luna, I need to pick someone up. Get out here for now, I'll have someone come pick you up later." Luna closed her eyes briefly, enduring the pain as she turned to look at him. "This is the highway. You want me to get out here?" Ezekiel leaned over and gently kissed her forehead, his tone soft but leaving no room for argument. "I have something urgent. Get off up ahead. Duncan is also on this highway. He'll be here in about 10 minutes. You can go back with him." Luna looked at her boyfriend. His expression was as gentle as usual, but the increasing speed at which his left hand tapped the steering wheel betrayed his anxiety. She took a deep breath, softening her tone with a hint of pleading. "It's my period today. My stomach really hurts, and you're not even supposed to get out on the highway." Ezekiel. She didn't want to argue with him right now. With the intensity of the cramps in her lower abdomen, she wasn't even sure she could last 10 minutes if she got out. She had hoped this would make Ezekiel relent. But, "That's enough. Don't be so overdramatic," Ezekiel snapped, the gentleness in his eyes vanishing instantly. His patience had clearly run out. He didn't even look at her as he pulled the car over into the emergency lane. The suffocating atmosphere inside the car made it hard for Luna to breathe. She lowered her gaze and suddenly asked softly, "You're going to pick up Ivy, aren't you?" After a moment, he gave a nonchalant mem, completely indifferent to her feelings. Luna's hand, resting on her stomach, clenched unconsciously. Only when her fingers turned pale and began to tremble did she slowly loosen her grip. There was no point in continuing to argue. Begging someone only to be rejected, it was humiliating. Before getting out of the car, the last thing she said to him was, "How ridiculous. My own boyfriend leaves me on the highway, just to go pick up another woman." Chapter 2. 2 years ago, Luna went to negotiate a flawed contract with a client company as the subcontracting party. On her way back, the heel of her high-heeled shoe suddenly got stuck in a sewer grate. She twisted her ankle slightly but couldn't pull the shoe free. On the busy street, with cars rushing past and people coming and going, she didn't want to take off her shoe and step barefoot onto the ground in public. Just as Luna was about to give in and remove her shoe, a pair of long, strong hands grasped her ankle. With a gentle turn, he twisted the heel and freed it. From Luna's angle, she could only see the man's clean, well-defined jawline. He let go of her ankle and stood up, curling his lips into a faint smile. A girl's feet shouldn't touch the dirt. A wicked charm lingered in the smile on his handsome face. The sun was glaring, and the air was stiflingly hot, making people irritable. But suddenly, Luna felt as if everything around her had gone silent, so silent that she could only hear the sound of her own heartbeat. In an era where fast food romance and interest-first priorities ruled, she fell in love with him at first sight. The next day, she saw him again in the conference room and learned that he was the person in charge of the project from the client company, Ezekiel. The two of them naturally got together. Occasionally, he would say a few sweet words to her, and when he had time, he would pick her up from work. The only strange thing was that Ezekiel never took the initiative to introduce her to his friends. When they ran into acquaintances, he would only mention her name when introducing her. But Luna didn't mind. She liked Ezekiel, and small details like that didn't seem worth caring about. The first time Luna heard the name Ivy was on Christmas Eve last year. Ezekiel got off work early to pick her up. The two of them bought some ingredients at the supermarket and went home together, while Luna was in the kitchen preparing carp. Ezekiel suddenly hugged her from behind, lightly biting her ear as he let out a low chuckle. "How are you so domesticated?" Startled, Luna froze, flustered, her face instantly burning all the way down to her neck. She bit her lip lightly, turned to look at him, her shy gaze carrying a hint of expectation. Then, Why haven't you married me yet? The moment the words left her mouth, Luna felt his body stiffen for a second. He didn't respond. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Just as she was about to change the subject, Ezekiel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then looked at Luna, before turning away to answer the call. Maybe it was intuition, but Luna suddenly felt that the person on the other end of the phone was someone special to him. As if possessed, she quietly walked out of the kitchen and stood silently by the wall. She heard him speak in a tone of gentleness she had never heard before. Why does your stomach hurt all of a sudden? Is it your period? Did you take any medicine? After a while, his speech quickened, filled with concern and urgency. I'll come take you to the hospital right now. Okay, Ivy? As he spoke, he reached for his coat, preparing to leave. When he turned around, he met the gaze of the woman still holding a spatula. No one knew what was said on the other end, but after hanging up, Ezekiel stopped moving. After a long while, the rice cooker switched to keep warm mode, snapping Luna out of her daze. Oh, the rice is ready. You're going out, right? Then I'll wait for you to come back so we can eat. She tried to sound casual, but her tone came out stiff instead. After speaking, she quickly turned and walked back. Luna, her steps halted, but she didn't turn around. He looked at her back, and after a long pause, his low voice sounded, "Just a friend." Later, Luna realized that those words weren't just meant for her, they were more like something he was telling himself. Only later did she learn that he and Ivy were childhood sweethearts, that he had loved Ivy for 8 years, and that Ivy had married someone else. She found all this out one day when he was drunk, after seeing the chat history between him and Ivy. But at that time, Luna loved Ezekiel so deeply it was ingrained in her bones. So she calmly put down his phone, went to the bathroom to get a warm towel, and gently wiped his face. Looking at his sharp, handsome features, her eyes reddened. She forced a slight smile and comforted herself. It's okay, Ivy is already married. He will fall in love with me. Reality proved that being blindly love-struck never leads to a good ending. During the 2 years they were together, all her compromises, her devotion, even her unconditional tolerance, ended up moving no one but herself. And all of it completely collapsed the moment she heard that Ivy had divorced and returned to the country. Chapter 3. The wind by the highway was strong, carrying waves of chill. Combined with the darkening sky, a sense of unease rose in Luna's heart. She had already waited for nearly half an hour, yet there was still no sign of Duncan. She kept herself pressed tightly against the roadside guardrail, not daring to take a single step forward. The cramping pain in her lower abdomen was draining what little strength she had left. She took out her phone, intending to call Ezekiel and ask about the situation. After tapping the screen several times with no response, she finally remembered that her phone had already run out of battery and shut down. The cars on the highway sped past like arrows released from a bow. All she could do now was pray that at least one car would notice her existence. But misfortune always seemed to come all at once. The gloomy sky began to release scattered raindrops, which gradually turned into a heavy downpour. Luna was soon drenched by the icy rain, and the pain in her abdomen grew even more intense. She could only crouch beside the guardrail, clutching her stomach tightly with both hands, her entire body trembling. Just as it was about to get dark, an off-road vehicle stopped beside her. A man got out with an umbrella, walked up to her, and crouched down. He tilted the umbrella toward her to shield her from the rain and asked, "How did you end up on the highway? Are you here alone?" Luna nodded, forcing herself to endure the pain, her voice weak. "Could you please take me off the highway, or help me call the police?" Zachary didn't say much. He scooped up her frail body, half lifting and half supporting her into the passenger seat. Then he grabbed a blanket from the back seat and draped it over her. Without hesitation, he returned to the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove off. Inside the car, he turned the heater up to the maximum. Before long, Luna began to feel some sensation returning to her hands and feet. She gradually stopped trembling and murmured softly, "Thank you." Zachary glanced at her pale, almost paper-white face. "Should I take you to the hospital?" Luna gave a faint smile, though she seemed to have little strength left. She shook her head, her voice hoarse. "No, just drop me off somewhere after we get off the highway." Zachary let out a quiet scoff. finding it somewhat absurd. Do you really think I'd leave someone who looks like they might pass out any second on the side of the road? Luna opened her mouth but found herself unable to argue. Even if he left her somewhere, she wouldn't be able to get home. Her phone was dead, possibly even damaged by the rain, and she didn't have a single cent on her. Zachary didn't give her time to hesitate. Give me your address. Luna fell silent again. Wasn't her home here just the apartment she shared with Ezekiel? But she didn't want to go back. The storm had chilled more than just her body, it had seeped into her heart. Seeing that she wasn't speaking, Zachary chuckled lightly. That wary. Huh? Luna coughed twice in a hurry and quickly shook her head. No, sorry to trouble you. She gave him the address of an apartment a friend had asked her to look after some time ago. Her friend had gone abroad for further studies, leaving the place empty, so she had given the key to Luna, telling her to stay there whenever she liked. The only thing Luna felt grateful for now was that the key was still in her bag, giving her somewhere to go when she had nowhere else to turn. Zachary raised an eyebrow slightly after hearing the address but said nothing. When they passed by a pharmacy, Zachary stepped on the brakes and stopped the car. Before getting out, he glanced at her. Wait here for a moment. Luna nodded. Okay. Watching his tall, upright figure walk away, Luna blinked, uncertain. Could he be going to buy medicine for her? A few minutes later, Zachary returned and tossed a bag to her. What is this? Luna looked at the bag, then at him. Cold medicine. Luna pressed her lips together. Thank you, but I don't think I've caught a call. Before she could finish, her nose suddenly tickled, and she sneezed. The irony hit instantly. Zachary gave her a casual glance. Just before he started the car again, Luna hesitated and spoke. Zachary paused. What? Could you wait for me a moment? I want to go buy some medicine too. Zachary frowned. What else is wrong? What medicine do you need? I'll get it. Seeing him about to get out again, Luna quickly stopped him. No, it's fine. I'll go myself. Zachary stared at her for a few seconds, making Luna feel slightly uneasy. Then he tilted his chin toward the window on her side. Do you see how heavy the rain is out there? If you go out again, I might as well just take you straight to the hospital afterward. The sarcasm in his words was unmistakable. Chapter 4. The rain outside grew heavier and heavier, the chaotic sound of raindrops pounding against the car making the silence inside feel even more awkward. After hesitating for a long time, Luna finally gave in and muttered the names of 2 medicines. Zachary repeated them to confirm, then took the umbrella and stepped out of the car. The pharmacist saw him return and ask for 2 kinds of medicine. After packing them, the pharmacist handed them over and joked, "Buying medicine for your girlfriend? Remember, girls shouldn't touch cold water during their period." Zachary paused slightly as he took the medicine, then nodded without saying anything. When he got back into the car, he handed the medicine to Luna as if nothing had happened. The 2 remained silent all the way until they reached the destination. Which building and which floor? This was the first thing he said to her after the pharmacy incident. Luna thought for a moment. Building 3, Unit 1. Zachary smiled again. She turned her head to look at him, confused. Why did you park here? Luna asked, puzzled as she looked at the parking lot in front of them. Zachary turned off the engine, got out of the car, and walked around to open the passenger door. Looking down at her, he said meaningfully, I live here. Luna followed him out of the car and into the elevator in a daze. She pressed the floor button, even as the elevator doors closed and began to rise. The man beside her didn't make a move. Luna swallowed, thinking to herself, no way. It couldn't be that much of a coincidence. When the elevator stopped, the 2 walked out together. There were only 2 apartments on the floor. Luna watched with her own eyes as he unlocked the door to the unit next to hers. Just as Zachary was about to go inside, he suddenly remembered something and called out to her. Don't drink anything cold these next few days. His tone was casual, unlike her, who had to struggle internally for so long over simple things. The fragile emotional barrier Luna had been holding onto finally collapsed. Fortunately, the exhaustion in her body gradually drowned out her thoughts. After taking a shower and her medicine, she buried herself under the covers and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 5. At the airport exit. After waiting for nearly an hour due to a flight delay, Ivy finally came out. She didn't look like someone who had been married at all, still radiant and elegant. Just like 3 years ago. Ezekiel, the woman curved her red lips, her eyes full of charm. Ivy, long time no see, the man replied in a low, husky voice. Ivy paused slightly at the formality, then smiled at him. Why so distant? Ezekiel gave a faint, unreadable smile and took her suitcase. Where do you want to go? Ivy held her stomach and frowned lightly. I'm so hungry. She acted spoiled toward him just like before, as if nothing between them had ever changed. Ezekiel seemed momentarily dazed, his voice unconsciously softening. Then I'll take you to eat first. Ivy's eyes lit up. I want Suzhou cuisine. Sitting in the car, Ivy grew bored and turned on the radio. A formal female voice reported, at 14:37 today, a section of the northbound Taohua Highway collapsed. It is suspected to have been caused by heavy rain erosion. Casualties are currently being assessed. Ezekiel's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He then turned off the radio and called Duncan. Hello? Ezekiel. What's up? Where are you? Duncan sounded confused. I just got home. Ezekiel's brows furrowed deeper and deeper as he asked in a low voice. Didn't you see the message I sent you to pick up Luna? Huh? What message? Duncan instantly became alert. I didn't see it. I was driving and didn't check my phone. Where's your girlfriend now? Do you still need me to pick her up? Ezekiel immediately hung up and called Luna. Her phone was still off. He called several times in a row, each time it was still powered off. Ivy looked at the man beside her. His expression had turned dark, with a trace of worry mixed in. She didn't quite understand. What's wrong, Ezekiel? Her clear voice finally made him stop. He let out a faint breath and said calmly, Nothing. After that, he didn't try calling again. Something with such a low probability wouldn't happen. Luna was probably just throwing a tantrum and refusing to answer him. That's what he told himself. Chapter 6. In the following days, he didn't take the initiative to contact her even once. Luna stayed here the entire time and never went back. She also deliberately avoided anything related to Ezekiel. Since she only went out during her commute, she didn't run into Zachary again either. The turning point came on a Saturday afternoon. It was supposed to be a day off, but when her boss went to sign a contract at the client's company, he realized he had forgotten to bring it and urgently demanded that Luna deliver it within half an hour. Everything happened in a rush. By the time she hurriedly delivered the contract and returned home, she only remembered she had forgotten her keys when she reached the door. She stared at the dark, glossy wooden door in silence for a while, then, holding on to a sliver of hope, turned and knocked on Zachary's door. A few seconds later, the door opened. Zachary was dressed casually. Luna felt a bit awkward. It's like this, I forgot my keys. Could I borrow your balcony for a moment? Zachary nodded casually and stepped aside to let her in. Thank you. Luna followed him to the balcony. She took a quick glance at the interior. This apartment was nearly twice the size of the one she was staying in. He seemed to live alone. Yet the place was clean and tidy, with a simple and elegant design. Zachary leaned lazily against the balcony railing, looking her up and down. You're planning to climb over? Luna nodded. Yes, the distance between this balcony and mine is really close. It shouldn't be too hard to get across. The man let out a light scoff and raised a hand to scratch his brow. Don't be so confident. This is the 15th floor. Feeling a bit annoyed at being underestimated, Luna explained seriously. I used to climb trees all the time when I was a kid. Zachary curled his lips slightly and didn't waste any more time arguing. He glanced at the balcony, braced his hands, and in one swift motion vaulted over to the other side. Luna walked to the edge of the balcony in a daze and finally realized just how far apart the two balconies actually were. He had crossed it in a single move. What are you still standing there for? The doors open. Zachary had already come back at some point. Luna swallowed a few times before saying sincerely, You're amazing. Zachary raised an eyebrow. You flatter me. Later, one day on her way home from work, Luna ran into Zachary again and hitched a ride with him. Gradually, the two began to interact more. She learned from him that he was a retired Special Forces soldier and was now working as an instructor in the military. Coincidentally, the military base and her company were in the same direction. Zachary casually mentioned that he could give her a ride to work, and if their schedules aligned after work, they could head back together as well. Luna made a show of declining at first, then quickly agreed and offered to treat him to a meal in return. Zachary didn't seem to mind either way. Chapter 7. When Luna saw Ezekiel's call, she froze for a moment. It had been half a month. The two of them hadn't contacted each other. Yet she hadn't even thought of him once. Some things probably needed to be made clear. She paused, then pressed the answer button. Luna? His usually deep, magnetic voice now sounded dark. Have you been out fooling around? You're not even coming home anymore? The accusation in his tone was obvious. It was like a bucket of cold water poured over her head, snapping her fully awake. When she first heard his familiar voice, she had actually held onto a faint, ridiculous hope. She cursed herself silently for being stupid, then found him almost laughable. I thought you brought Ivy back. Shouldn't I hurry up and make space for you too? At the mention of Ivy, Ezekiel thought about what happened on the highway last time, and his tone softened slightly. She and I are just friends now. Leaving you on the highway that time was a misunderstanding. When he didn't hear Luna respond, he continued explaining. I sent Duncan a message, but he didn't see it. It sounded absurd. He could have just called Duncan in the first place. But instead he casually sent a message and never followed up. Clearly, it hadn't mattered that much to him. Luna lowered her eyes to look at the blanket. The soft, clear moonlight spilled across it. Suddenly, she remembered a long time ago, when Ivy had felt unwell during her period, and he had left her alone on Christmas Eve. The moon that night looked just like tonight's. She had sat on the couch and waited the entire night, and he never came back. Love and indifference, it was obvious at a glance. In truth, her one-sided persistence had long lost its meaning. She couldn't entirely blame Ezekiel. After knowing he loved someone else, she was the one who insisted on holding on. Ending up like this was something she had brought upon herself. Luna? She had been silent for too long. Ezekiel glanced at the screen and called her name again. A breeze slipped in through the window gap, pulling her back to reality. Luna looked at the green plant in the corner. It was placed beautifully, but it couldn't get any sunlight. The edges of its leaves had already started to wither and turn yellow. No matter how beautiful something is, if it doesn't belong, it's useless. So she said, let's just end things. Ezekiel. There was sudden silence on the other end, as if even his breathing had paused for a moment. A few seconds later, he finally asked slowly, you want to break up with me? His voice sounded like he was holding something back. Luna didn't answer, but her silence was enough. Ezekiel let out an angry laugh, momentarily losing control of his words. Didn't you already know about me and Ivy? You put up with it for so long, why can't you keep going now? Luna's heart was stabbed with pain, and at the same time, she became completely clear-headed. See? He had watched her love him recklessly all this time. He knew everything, and still treated her feelings like they meant nothing. The moment the words left his mouth, Ezekiel regretted them. He pinched the bridge of his nose, his tone softening. Luna, listen to me. He didn't finish before Luna cut him off. She forced back her tears, her voice restrained yet resolute. You're right. I brought this on myself. But can't I stop now? Then her voice softened, tinged with uncontrollable sobbing. Ezekiel, I never did anything to wrong you, so why do you have to treat me like I'm worthless? A sudden panic rose in Ezekiel's chest, as if something had slipped from his grasp, like a kite with its string cut, never to return. By the time he tried to speak again, Luna had already hung up. After ending the call, Luna opened his chat and sent one last message. I'll go back Friday at 5 p.m. to pack my things. I hope I won't see you that day. Then, without hesitation, she blocked him. Luna wrapped herself tightly in the blanket and told herself, if you still think about a scumbag like him, you're an idiot. During the 2 years she was with Ezekiel, she had never shown him her vulnerable side. Even when she first learned about Ivy, though she looked like she might cry, she still pretended nothing was wrong. This was the first time she felt this heartbroken. Ezekiel closed his eyes and collapsed weakly against the sofa, his heart aching as if it were suffocating. He let out a heavy breath and thought to himself, she's serious. Serious enough to make him panic. Chapter 8. On Friday morning, Zachary waited for her in the parking lot as usual. A few minutes later, Luna stepped out of the elevator and got into the car. After closing the door, she handed him a box. Zachary took it. What's this? A sandwich I made this morning. I made an extra one for you. The man raised an eyebrow slightly. Thanks. The sandwich didn't have much of a smell, so they finished eating it in the car before driving off. On the way, Luna suddenly remembered something and turned to him. You don't have to wait for me tonight. I'm going to look for a place to live. She wasn't wrong. It wouldn't be appropriate to stay at her friend's place for too long. Zachary paused for a moment, though his expression remained unreadable. You're moving out? Luna nodded. It's my friend's apartment. I'm just staying there temporarily. Zachary didn't say anything else. Only when they arrived at her office did he speak again. Tell me what you're looking for in a place. I'll keep an eye out. He tapped the steering wheel with one hand, his tone casual. Luna smiled slightly. Thanks. I don't have many requirements, just not too expensive and reasonably clean. Can you accept sharing an apartment? She thought for a moment. That's fine, as long as the roommate is clean and not too noisy. Zachary nodded leisurely, his tone ambiguous. All right. For some reason, Luna felt a vague sense of unease. That afternoon, Luna finished her work early and left the office around 4:30. When she returned to her old apartment and opened the door, unexpected, yet somehow expected, Ezekiel was sitting on the sofa, waiting for her. Luna ignored him and walked straight into the bedroom to pack her things. Are you done throwing a tantrum yet? Luna, have I spoiled you too much? He stood up and grabbed her wrist. Luna suddenly remembered that day when he left her by the roadside. He had said the same thing, accusing her of being dramatic. Perhaps she had already let go. Hearing those words now, the sadness was faint, replaced instead by irritation and a sense of irony. The heartbreak that once felt unbearable now seemed like something from a long time ago. She pulled her hand free, finished packing her belongings, lifted her suitcase, and turned to look at him with a faint, emotionless smile. You're right. I've been dramatic all along. Now I'm leaving. I won't bother you anymore. Could you move aside? The woman in front of him was still delicate and beautiful, but there was no longer any love in her eyes when she looked at him. Ezekiel pressed his lips tightly together, his gaze dark as he blocked her path without moving. She didn't have the patience to waste on him. Turning sideways, she squeezed past him. As she reached the doorway, his voice drifted coldly from behind her. I'll say this one last time, if you walk out now, don't ever come back. The last trace of heaviness in her chest finally lifted. Luna let out a soft scoff. That's exactly what I want. She tossed the key onto the shoe cabinet and walked away without looking back, appearing completely free and unrestrained. Ezekiel stared at the key on the cabinet, forcing down the discomfort and panic rising in his chest. He told himself she would come back to him. She loved him so much. How could she just leave like that? Luna was still fuming when she got back. Only then did she realize she had forgotten all about looking for a new place. She let out a helpless sigh. A scumbag really does ruin your life. Chapter 9. After checking the time, almost 8 p.m., Luna decided to look for an apartment tomorrow instead. The unpleasantness Ezekiel brought her earlier still lingered. She didn't feel like cooking, so she grabbed a cup of instant noodles, poured in hot water, and let it sit. Just as she was about to eat, there was a knock on the door. Luna opened it. Zachary was standing outside. Do you need something? She asked, peeking her head out. Zachary raised an eyebrow and glanced at her body half hidden behind the door. Can't I come in? Luna opened the door wider. No, of course you can. Come in. He glanced at the lonely cup of instant noodles on the table and frowned slightly. That's what you're having for dinner? Luna let out an ah, feeling a bit embarrassed, and casually replied, I'm not really hungry tonight. Then she quickly changed the subject. So, what did you come for? Have you found a place yet? Zachary asked. Luna lowered her eyes and shook her head. The mention of housing made her think of Ezekiel again. Zachary looked at the lively girl in front of him and recalled how she had been half a month ago when he found her in the rain, completely different from now. Back then, she had been like a soaked, injured fledgling, curled up pitifully on the ground, unable to even fly. She was clearly still young, yet always tried to put on a composed, unshakable front, as if nothing could faze her. But she couldn't quite pull it off. It was like a child wearing oversized adult clothes. There was a kind of contrast that made her oddly endearing. Do you want to share an apartment with me? The quiet air was suddenly shattered by his abrupt proposal. Luna's foot, idly swinging in her slippers, froze. She looked up at him, blinking. What did you say? Not interested? Luna instinctively shook her head. No, it's not that. She couldn't quite pinpoint what felt off. Her mind was just in a bit of a mess. Zachary calmly listed the advantages of living with him. The rent's not high. I keep things pretty clean. I don't talk much. And most importantly, you get a ride to and from work. She couldn't refute a single point. After a moment of silence, Luna finally voiced her doubts softly. You seem to live just fine on your own. Why would you want to share with me? You don't look like you're short on money. Zachary shifted his gaze from the now cold noodles back to her, his eyes calm. What do you want me to say? His features were sharp, and perhaps because of his military background, he kept his hair in a buzz cut. Even in casual clothes, he carried an unintentional sense of pressure. Under his direct gaze, Luna felt a bit at a loss. She could only give an awkward laugh to brush it off. Nothing. Nothing. Zachary saw through her unease but still stepped closer. Luna panicked internally, though she tried to stay composed on the surface. Her eyes darted around, avoiding his. What, should I say I've taken a liking to you? That I don't want you to leave. So I'm asking you to move in with me? With his hands in his sweatpants pockets, Zachary backed her gently against the wall, leaning down to look straight into her eyes. The girl in front of him had already flushed unconsciously. Compared to shyness, it was probably more embarrassment. Luna steadied herself, though her face remained red. She answered seriously, Sorry. I just got out of a relationship. I don't think I want to start another one right now. Zachary let out a soft chuckle. She was clearly rejecting him, yet somehow looked irresistibly cute. He straightened up and stepped back. Returning to a safe distance, he didn't want to scare her. All right then, give me a chance. At least, if you move away. How am I supposed to prove myself? With such a good housing option, only an idiot would refuse. Besides, she should start looking at other people. Over the past 2 years, she had turned down quite a few because of Ezekiel. Seeing her think it over before finally nodding, Zachary slowly relaxed his hand inside his pocket. Then he pointed at the cup of noodles. That's gone cold. I just cooked. Want to eat together? Luna shook her head. It's okay. I'll just make another one. She couldn't reject him and then immediately go over to his place for a meal. Zachary didn't push further. Pressing too hard would only backfire. He simply brought over a few of the dishes he had cooked, then went back to his own place. Chapter 10. That day was the first time Luna had ever seen such panic on Ezekiel's face. Before getting off work, Zachary had texted her, saying he could make it in time to pick her up and asking her to wait. Feeling playful, Luna deliberately teased him, replying with just an "oh," without her usual emojis. A few minutes later, he replied again, "It won't be long." Sure enough, he thought she was upset. Luna let out a sly laugh. Ever since Zachary confessed, he had been pursuing her seriously and patiently for 3 months. When he found her, it had been the last rain of autumn. Now, the coldest part of winter was almost over. Although they were living under the same roof, Zachary had never once crossed any boundaries. He always respected her and kept an appropriate distance. He was genuinely putting his heart into pursuing her. 3 months wasn't long or short. Luna might still not be able to fully fall in love with Zachary, but she had already completely let go of Ezekiel. Her company had ongoing business dealings with Ezekiel's company. 2 months ago, when she went there for a handover, she happened to see Ezekiel and Ivy walking out of the elevator together. She stood at a distance, and neither of them noticed her. Hearing people nearby discussing how well-matched Ezekiel and Ivy were, she didn't feel much at all. She even agreed with them. A few seconds later, she lowered her head and continued reviewing the contract in her hands, no longer sparing them another thought. In less than 10 minutes, Zachary arrived. After receiving his call, Luna strolled downstairs leisurely. The tall, well-built man leaned casually against the car door, quietly watching her. The cool breeze lifted the hem of his coat, and for a fleeting moment, her heart stirred. Luna quickened her pace and stopped in front of him, tilting her head up with a smile. "Let's go." Zachary nodded. Just as Luna turned around, her arm was suddenly yanked back with force. She turned around. Ezekiel was staring at her darkly, his tone chilling. "Luna, it hasn't even been that long. You're already with someone else?" As he spoke, he shot a glance at the man beside her, his hostility completely undisguised. After Luna blocked all of Ezekiel's contact information, a problem arose at his company, forcing him to deal with work first. Later, Ivy approached him on her own. During that time, he had indeed tried to let go of Luna and accept someone else. His childhood sweetheart was still the same person, but his feelings had already changed. Ivy would hold his hand every day, hug him, just like Luna used to cling to him. When she cooked in the kitchen, her silhouette looked so much like Luna's. That day, as if possessed, he let Ivy stay. When night fell, there was no need for many words between two adults. Ivy lay shyly beneath him, beautiful and alluring. He kissed her, like kissing something he had long yearned for. But just as he was about to lose control, he suddenly rolled over and lay to the side. He covered his eyes with his arm and said, "Ivy, I can't forget her." Even though he kept telling himself over and over that he still loved Ivy, that Luna wasn't that important. He had to admit that without Luna, he felt like a walking corpse, his life devoid of meaning. Only then did he finally admit that he had already fallen in love with Luna. This time, he could lower his pride first, as long as Luna would forgive him. On his way to find her, he even passed by a flower shop. Remembering that she liked white camellias, he got out and bought a bouquet. But now, he couldn't give them to her anymore. Ezekiel's heart felt like it was being pierced by countless needles. She really had no heart. How could she so casually laugh and talk with another man after just a few months? Zachary glanced down at Luna's arm, then raised his hand and knocked Ezekiel's grip away. Meeting his gaze without backing down, he said, "Hey, if you've got something to say, say it. Why are you grabbing her?" Ezekiel was instantly enraged, a violent aura rising from him. "I'm talking to her. What does that have to do with you?" After seeing Ezekiel, the surprise in Luna's eyes quickly faded into indifference. She stepped in front of Zachary and looked at Ezekiel calmly, suddenly unable to understand how she had ever liked him. "Do you still not understand why I broke up with you?" She cut him off. Chapter 11. Ezekiel stared at her, his eyes bloodshot. The sharp drop in temperature at night made her words sound even colder. "It's because even after I told you I wasn't feeling well, you still left me alone on the highway. Because you were indecisive in your heart but still chose to be with me. Because the one you've always loved was someone else." Ezekiel, there was moisture in his eyes. He reached out with a trembling hand, trying to grab her, his voice hoarse. "I was wrong. Luna, can you forgive me just once?" Luna slightly turned to avoid him so he could panic because of her too. But she no longer cared. "I'm not going to bring up old grievances with you," she said, even letting out a soft laugh as if mocking her own past foolishness. "But you don't know, that day, I don't even know how long I stood in the rain. I wanted to call you to tell you how much it hurt, but my phone was dead. I could only crouch there by the roadside, all alone." Her voice was calm, as if she were telling someone else's story, as if she had never gone through it herself. "In those 2 years, I actually forgave you many times." That encounter ended with Ezekiel leaving in a daze. After he left, Luna got into the car just as decisively. The rearview mirror reflected the man walking away, but she didn't look back at him even once. Chapter 12. Another 2 months passed. After the biting autumn winds and winter snow, warmth finally returned. One night at the end of March, Luna developed acute gastroenteritis after working overtime, rotating shifts, and maintaining an irregular schedule. It sounded like a common illness, but when it hurt, it was unbearable. As soon as Zachary noticed something was wrong, he immediately took her to the hospital for an 4 drip. In the early hours of the morning, when Luna woke up, she saw a man in a shirt sitting beside her, half asleep in the chair. He had taken off his coat and draped it over her. Zachary opened his eyes. Seeing that she was awake, he quickly crouched in front of her, his voice still a little hoarse. "Does it still hurt?" He glanced at the 4 bag again and let out a breath of relief. There was still medicine left. Luna looked down at him, and suddenly her nose stung. She gently raised her hand and rubbed his earlobe, asking softly, "Can you be my boyfriend? I'm sorry I didn't fall in love with you at first sight, but thank you for staying by my side these past 6 months and helping me quickly move on from my last relationship. Because I saw the sincerity and tenderness in your eyes, I've come to believe again that I deserve to be loved." That year, In the vibrant spring, Luna finally met someone who loved her wholeheartedly and always responded to her. 3 months into their relationship, one night while they were out shopping, Zachary took her hand and led her into a jewelry store. Stopping in front of a display case of rings, Luna suddenly felt a little flustered and tugged at his hand. "Isn't this too fast?" Zachary raised an eyebrow and chuckled. "What are you thinking?" He had only bought a pair of simple rings to mark his claim as her boyfriend. Then he narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at her with amusement. "You thought it was an engagement ring?" Caught out, Luna refused to admit it, even getting a little flustered. "I did not." After walking for a while, Luna grew tired. While Zachary went to buy her milk tea, she raised her hand to admire the ring, the corners of her lips lifting unconsciously. It was just a simple band, yet she loved it so much. Suddenly, she was pressed into a corner by a strong force. Luna frowned and looked up, thinking about it. It had been nearly half a year since she last saw Ezekiel. Since that day, he had never bothered her again. Ezekiel stared intently at the ring on her hand, his tone bitter. "Are you really planning to give me up?" Only at this moment did he truly realize Luna was really going to leave him for good, and had fallen for someone else. His heart felt like it was being torn apart, but Luna was the only cure he knew. "I've already cut things off with Ivy. From now on, it'll only be you. Let's get married, okay? Luna, don't leave me." The man no longer carried his former arrogance. All that remained was the most humble plea, but it didn't move Luna in the slightest. She slowly removed his hand, her voice calm. "You were the one who gave up on me first. On the day you left me behind, you already made your choice. Ezekiel, you were the one who abandoned me first." The man's body stiffened. He could no longer lift his hand to stop her. Luna didn't linger. She walked past him and left. Ezekiel turned his head slightly to watch her retreating figure. She looked the same as before, unchanged. The ring on her hand caught the streetlight, reflecting a beam of light that stung his eyes. Suddenly, Ezekiel recalled a day during those 2 years they were together. He had once stopped outside a jewelry store, staring inside. By the counter, a couple was choosing rings, the man doting, the woman adorable. At that moment, Luna's figure suddenly appeared in his mind. As if possessed, he walked toward the counter. Just as he picked out a pair of rings and was about to ask the clerk, Ivy called, telling him she had gotten divorced. That day, he turned and walked out of the jewelry store, never looking back. Chapter Extra. Luna bit on the straw of her milk tea, sneaking glances at the man driving from time to time. When she came back earlier, Zachary had already returned and was standing there waiting for her. She had wanted to explain herself, but he simply placed the milk tea in her hand and went to the parking lot to get the car. Luna took another sip on purpose and tried to start a conversation. "I asked for a hot one, but this is only warm." She waved the cup at him. Zachary didn't even spare her half a glance, only replying calmly, "Is that so?" "It is. If you don't believe me, try it." She pushed the milk tea toward him. Zachary turned his head slightly to avoid it. "I believe you." Seeing him dodge, Luna puffed out her cheeks and glared at him. "Why are you avoiding it? Do you think I'm gross or something?" Zachary curled his lips faintly but didn't answer. Luna grew annoyed and stopped talking altogether. They remained silent all the way until they entered the elevator in their building. The more Luna thought about it, the angrier she became. Usually, he wouldn't let her go when kissing her, but now he was acting like he was avoiding her. The moment she opened the door, she headed straight for her room without even looking at him. Before she could turn on the lights, she was suddenly lifted and placed on the cabinet by the entrance. Zachary's kiss came down on her, intense and overwhelming. The quiet air made every small sound between them feel even more intimate. And before long, Luna found herself swept away. As if sensing she was running out of breath, Zachary slowed down, pressing gentle kisses against her, as though soothing her. "I think you're gross." His deep voice sounded low and close. "Then why didn't you drink my milk tea?" Luna sniffed lightly. It was a little embarrassing. She had actually been kissed to the point of tears. "Then why were you still in contact with Ezekiel?" Luna froze, then cupped his face, lifting it from her neck to look at him. "You saw that? Then you could have just asked me." Zachary raised an eyebrow. "Asked what? What if you told me you were getting back together with him?" "How could that be?" I only like you, Luna blurted out. After a moment, Zachary let out a soft laugh, clearly pleased by her instinctive answer. Later, while Luna was showering, the bathroom door suddenly opened. She turned around abruptly. Zachary leaned against the doorframe, a key spinning in his hand, a hint of mischief in his smile. What are you doing? Luna instinctively tried to cover herself, only to realize she couldn't fully do so. Shower together. The one in my room is broken. He stepped closer, one step at a time. Didn't you say I was avoiding you? I'll prove I'm not. The next day, Luna didn't slowly wake up until noon. Zachary was nowhere to be seen. Her whole body felt like it had been run over several times, sore to the point she could barely move. Holding her waist, Luna slowly got out of bed, intending to take a shower. But when she thought about what had happened in the bathroom the night before, she felt too embarrassed to face it. So she grabbed her clothes and slowly walked to the bathroom in Zachary's room instead. When she turned on the shower, she suddenly remembered that Zachary had said last night that his shower was broken. Her thoughts were instantly interrupted by the perfectly normal stream of water pouring down. Zachary, you're so dead.